Continuiamo il nostro...
Let's go on with our meringues. We've seen French meringue, now we're going to be seeing the main specifications about Italian meringue. It is a cooked meringue, meaning that we are foaming the egg whites slightly, and then after they have foamed, we're going to add the smallest part of the sugar. In the majority of the balances of the recipes, we always find two distinguished way outs of sugar, one's bigger and one is smaller, and if you don't have this, remember that 1/5 of the sugar must be put during the foaming phase of the egg whites. So putting the egg whites in, remember that in this case it is important to use pasteurized egg whites, because often meringue in the majority of the cases is used as a base of cold foamy desserts like semifreddo or mousse. And so, since it is a product that's not baked in the oven, in order to have a complete safety, we must use pasteurized egg whites. Pasteurization is a thermal process that we apply to products like eggs or milk to contain and reduce the proliferation of the microorganisms, so to improve the preservability of our ingredients. There are mainly 3 types of pasteurization: low, medium, and high. Then clearly we have the more efficient ones that are sterilization or UHT, which produce a thermal process that it's much higher, much stronger. In those cases we have a product that is safer, but clearly after the thermal process it is poorer in nutritional value. As we said, pasteurization can be low, medium, and low. Low is around 65 degrees for half an hour, medium 75 degrees for 8 to 10 minutes, and then the high one around 85 degrees for around 3 minutes. So our work is not simply to work the product at a specific temperature, but to let it stay at that temperature for a certain amount of time. So we're more or less having a pasteurization, but it wouldn't be safe if we weren't using pasteurized eggs. So let's take our egg white to put it in our bowl, and as always we're going to slightly foam it up without sugar. We're going to add it later. So let's close the machine and turn it on. So medium speed. In our casserole we'll put the water and the biggest part of the sugar. We're going to turn on the heat. Remember to use a heat that's not too high. We are first dissolving the sugar nicely and then progressively increasing the temperature until getting to around 121 degrees. Towards 117, 118 we can remove the casserole from the heat, because the cooking will continue anyways. It is a process that we're doing with a thermometer, and today we'll try to see visually when we're getting to that part of the cooking. The functionality of our video classes is in the fact of trying to understand also visually when the products are ready and what values it has when we get to the right manufacturing time. Always remember to use a thermometer, a physical thermometer, not a laser one, because the laser one works on the surface, but we want a temperature that is at the core of the product. So let's progressively increase the heat and the speed of our planetary machine. Always remember to push slightly on the final part of the arm of your planetary machine to favor a better grip to the product. Let's take our smallest part of sugar that we separated earlier, and we will insert it when we are 30% of the way of the foaming phase of our egg whites. Clearly, apart from being a base of cold desserts. Italian meringue can be used to make macarons. If we use Italian meringue, we will have a macaron that's with a softer consistency, with a gummier consistency. Not negatively, talking about the perception. With a French meringue, the macaron will be crumblier. It can also be used as a base for pies that have meringue on top of them. You put them on top of the pie and then flambe the meringues on top. So, base for cold desserts, for macarons, or to be flambéed on top of pies. Every now and then, just move the pan slightly. Don't let the product spread too much towards the borders, the sides of the casserole, because when the syrup will fall back down, the dirty part on the sides of the casserole might burn. So always just slightly move it to move the liquid around and the sugar that might be at the center of the casserole. So we got to our ideal foamy phase of the egg whites. We are going to insert the caster sugar in the machine, gradually, of course, not to let the mass be too heavy. Here, you must remember that you never have to get to a complete whipping of the eggs, so always stop when the density of the base of the Italian meringue is not particularly tough, so 75% of the foaming capacity. When you notice that the sugar has completely melted, we can start determining the right cooking of the product. So we're surely around 100 degrees because the water has its boiling peak between 94 and 96 degrees. So at 100 degrees, by putting the sugar, we're starting to be at higher temperatures. As you can see, the boiling in this phase is harsh. There are big bubbles that are very clearly visible. There is a whitish part, which is the oxidating part, the unpure part of our product. We're going to just stir it a little bit more. And this is because we have a big flame, a big burner underneath our casserole, and the casserole is small. So let's remove our syrup, and we're going to pour it, touching the border, the side of the bowl, and we'll try to just strip it in the external part of the meringue, so trying to not insert it where the whisk is. Increasing the speed a little bit and just pouring very delicately and fluently, just like this. And as I go on inserting, I'm increasing the speed of the machine progressively, more and more, until I get more or less back to the speed, medium to high speed, that I had before. This is important, especially for the managing of your tools. And when you have some time, just fill your casserole with water and straight away put it over flame, over heat, to make it easier to be cleaned, because the sugar will harden. As we inserted the syrup, and we entered in around 80% of the whipping phase, it will take around maximum 3 minutes, always at contained and controlled speed. Remember at the same time not to make it too tough, too hardy, especially when you have to use it for mousse or semi-freddy basis, because if your Italian meringue, and we usually use 30% in the balance of a semi-freddy or a mousse, if it's too harsh, it might be difficult to mix with the other ingredients, so we must make it a little bit softer. Okay, so we're done. Let's take it. As you can see, the beak here is a lot more marked compared to the French meringue we saw, and this is the effect of the sugar syrup. Now, once we put it in a cooling phase, because of course the temperature fell down a lot, it gives stability. It stabilizes our meringue a lot more. Now what we're going to do, once our meringue is ready, if we had to use it in a cold dessert, mousse or semi-freddy, we're going to put it on a nice and wide tray with plastic film on top, and we're going to let it cool. If instead we're going to use it as a base for a pie with meringues on top, we can insert it in a pastry bag, and we're going to dress our meringue and then flambe it. And this is it with the demonstration of our Italian meringue.